Hi everyone and welcome to a new video. So in this video I'll be making a mock-up of my very first pair of stays. So I've been interested in historical costuming for a while now. I've been following a heap of people on Instagram and also here on YouTube. Some of my favourite YouTubers at the moment are Bernadette Banner and Angela Clayton. I've actually been following Angela Clayton for ages, and I've always really been fascinated by the amazing historical costumes that she makes and just how transforming the historical undergarments can be, and how the silhouettes for each of the different periods of history are created through these undergarments. And I decided to go with this pattern, which I found online. It's quite simple. It's only 2 pattern pieces, essentially a front piece which is cut on the fold, and then a back piece that wraps around the back. And the back piece is one pattern piece, but you cut it out twice for either side of your back. And I like that this pattern is able to be, you're able to put it on yourself without any assistance. So usually stays have quite a lot of lacing, and usually that means that you need someone else to help you lace into it, which I don't have another person to help me with that. So I really wanted to do something that was nice and easy, that I could wear by myself without any help, and that's why I was really pleased when I came across this pattern. So this pattern is an 1810s pattern, I believe, and it's based on an original extant garment from a museum or something. Yeah, I'll link the blog post that I found it on in the description below. So the pattern is there, as well as a whole historical short stays study on the garment. Yeah, the short stays study on the blog post is actually really interesting, so I would highly recommend that you read it if you are interested in historical fashion and whatnot. But yeah, so with the pattern that's on the blog, you do have to scale it up to, life size, so it will actually fit you, or the majority of it will fit you. You might need to tailor it and alter it a bit to get the perfect fit, but I didn't seem to have any trouble with fitting, so I scaled up the pattern and then printed it out, stuck all the pieces together as you saw earlier on in this video, and I didn't actually have to make any changes to the pattern apart from the bust gussets, which you actually have to draft yourself. So the bust gussets are not part of the pattern. That's something that should be specially designed for the individual wearing them. So my bust gussets were about 4 or 5 centimeters wide, and the length of them was the exact same length that was specified on the original pattern. I can't remember the length from the top of my head right now, but yeah, you can see here in the clip right now that I've ironed down those slits for where the bust gussets will go, and I'm also pinning down the center front so I can insert boning in there. And for the boning, I went for the cheap option, which is to just use cable ties from the hardware store rather than using a proper wooden busk, which was what was on the original extant garment. Yeah, and for inserting the bust gussets, which is what I'm doing now, I followed an online tutorial, also another blog post, I'll link it in the description below. So this was the first time that I've ever inserted bust gussets, and following the tutorial, it was quite easy. You literally just you iron down the seam. Oh my gosh, I can't explain this very well. You iron down the edges of the slit, so you iron them inwards, and then you literally just pin in the bust gusset and then sew it down, just following the pins. It's really that easy, and yeah, the bust gussets seem to fit fine, and yeah, there's not much else I can say about this part. Oh, I forgot to mention that I did follow a tutorial here on YouTube for scaling up the pattern. I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but oh well. So it's Morgan Donna's video. I'll link it in the description below. Definitely check out her channel. She does a lot of historical costumes and a lot of tutorials and that sort of thing. I love watching her videos. She's another one of my favorite YouTubers to watch at this moment. Oh, I didn't mention that this video is going to be more of just a chatty video diary type of thing, rather than a proper let's walk through the process of making this and I'll explain to you what I'm doing each step of the way, because this is just a mock-up and it's my first time doing it, and there were no instructions for constructing this, so I just sort of guessed, and I think the techniques that I was using were a bit modern. I highly doubt they would have been like sewing the edges together and then hiding the seam allowances. This is really hard to explain, but basically I think back then they would have flatlined. I didn't flatline, I sort of, you know, did the modern lining technique, if that makes any sense. If you sew, that probably makes a bit of sense. Yeah, but if you didn't know, I've actually never been trained in sewing. I'm literally just self-taught, and I just read a lot on the internet. I read and watch a lot. That's how I learn, and sewing for me is just a hobby, so no reason to be, you know, really perfect about everything and having to follow all the different historical techniques. For me, it's all just a little bit of fun, and it's just a way to get away from my computer, actually, because that's what I do most of the time for work. Sit at a desk at a computer, and sewing is just a nice way to relieve your eyes. That's how I see it anyway, and it's a nice, fun process, I find. Sometimes it can be frustrating, but that's why I could never do it as a full-time job. I think I would just get way too frustrated. Anyway, this is turning into a bit of a little ramble type of thing. I'm getting off topic now. In the clips, I'm still sewing these side seams. Yeah, I don't know what this technique is called, but I'm just sewing down the side seams and then trimming the seam allowance on one side and then folding the other seam allowance over and sewing it down so all the raw edges are encased. I don't know why I bothered with this, because this is just a mock-up. I didn't even finish off the edges around the I didn't finish off the raw edges around the rest of the stays. I just zigzag stitched over everything, mainly because I just wanted to test out the zigzag stitch on my sewing machine. I've had this sewing machine for quite a few months now, and I've only ever used the straight stitch, and I guess I just felt like using the zigzag stitch for once. Yeah. It's a good sewing machine, I like it. Oh, here I'm inserting the boning. So like I said before, I settled on using zip ties or cable ties from the hardware store. So these are just plastic, and I'm just marking where I need to sew the boning channel and then sewing that in. And like I mentioned before, the original extant garment had a wooden busk. So a wooden busk would have would have been the, you know, the primary sort of what do you call it? The mechanism for keeping the center front of the stays straight. Yep, so especially in going into like the early 1800s, which is the Regency era, a lot of the stays or corsets, they all had wooden busks, and then as the corsets or stays, I don't know if you can use them interchangeably, but okay, we'll stick with stays. As the years went on, the stays got shorter and shorter, and then I don't know if they still had wooden busks, but this pair of stays is the very early 1800s, so it's that transitional period between the 18th century, where you've got costumes like the Outlander style costumes, and then it's between that period and then, like, you know, the Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice, Regency era. So you can see here that I just tried it on, and I sewed one of the back pieces upside down. And because this is a mock-up, I just snipped that off, and then I literally just zigzag stitched it together. I didn't even bother with trying to make this look nice. I just wanted to get the fitting right. This is another reason why this video is not going to be a step-by-step follow along the construction process, because I had no clue what I was doing. Yeah, so I just zigzag stitched that down on both sides, so now the piece would be sewn on the correct way. And then trying this back on, and with the shoulder straps, I just pinned them in place. In the original garment, there was eyelets on the shoulder straps, and then you could tie them so they were adjustable, but I can't be bothered mucking around with that. Oh, and here you can see that it wraps around the back just like that, and you pull the sides to the front, and then you tie it in the front. Now the ties, I cut them really long, so I could just tie the fabric together, but on the actual original garment, it's I think it's like cotton twill tape or something that's sewn to the fabric, and then that's what they've used as ties. Or maybe there was a hook and eye closure. I can't remember now, but you can use a hook and eye closure, you can use ties, you can use whatever. Anyway, as you can see, the stays actually fit quite nicely. And then I decided to try it over the top of my new linen chemise, which is not historically accurate either, but I do like the look of it. It actually reminds me of Belle's nightgown dress from the 2017 movie Beauty and the Beast. Like, let me know if you think it reminds you of this dress as well. I'll put it up on screen. But yeah, as soon as I tried this on, I was like, this really does seem like a cosplay. It could be a cosplay, or even like the undergarments for Belle's maiden everyday outfit. So yeah, it fits really nicely, and it's actually quite comfortable because there is no other like boning or lacing, there's nothing digging into you, and it provides nice bust support, and it really helps with correcting your posture as well. I was actually quite pleasantly surprised with that. So overall, I'm really pleased with the fit of this, and for my first pair of stays, well, I mean, they're not proper because this is just a mock-up, but yeah, for my very first attempt, I think this was a success, and hopefully my real version will go just as well.